Thank you, Alex. And a huge thank you to Creative Mornings for having me. I want to start by acknowledging and thanking so many of you in this room that are here to talk about creativity, to talk about what growth means to you and what it means to the symphony and how we can all learn from each other. And before I dive in, I want to acknowledge my team members here who are here to support. Can you guys stand really quick and just give them a huge hand? We have Callie Kent, our general manager, and Elizabeth Young, our director of education and community. I also, I saw them earlier. I want to thank the folks who are here from City of Santa Fe Arts and Culture. Chelsea Johnson, thank you for being here. And Johanna from the City Economic Development Department, we appreciate you. The Symphony has partnered with the city, the Community Foundation, our donors, and I want to acknowledge our board member, Bob Vladam, Vice President of Marketing for the Symphony. Thank you for being here as well. Because the type of growth that I'm talking about today and the type of growth that we all want to embark on as creatives, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. You cannot grow alone. Nothing grows alone. Even a tree, right? You need sunshine and water and not to be trampled and all of those things to come together. And just like that, the Santa Fe Symphony and the Youth Symphony, when we merged, we needed so many people, so many other institutions, so many audience members, parents, ticket buyers to come together and help us go through this period of growth. So a little bit about me. Alex mentioned I am the executive director of the Symphony. So what does an executive director do? Honestly, anything. I'll do anything for the Santa Fe Symphony, including speaking to a group of people at Creative Mornings, and thank you, Alex, for inviting me here today. And my favorite thing about my job is the people that I work with. Santa Fe Symphony's mission at its core is to inspire, educate, and engage with our community. And that came even more to life with this recent merger. And I just realized I do have slides, after all. I forgot about that. So a little bit about what we do. You can find us performing at the Lensic, at the Cathedral, at the libraries, in Los Alamos. Our youth program students perform. We bus kids into the Lensic. We go into classrooms and support music educators. And one of the things that people don't often realize about the Santa Fe Symphony is that we are building the creative economy of northern New Mexico by employing New Mexico-based professional orchestral and choral musicians and New Mexico-based instructors. And I do want to give it up for those people because so many of you here today are working artists or working visual or performing artists, and that creative economy is so unique in Santa Fe. It's something that deserves investment. It deserves recognition and for its own community to step up and support it. In 2024, the Santa Fe Symphony merged with the Santa Fe Youth Symphony Association. My colleague, Callie Kent, who's now our general manager, was at the time the executive director of the Santa Fe Youth Symphony Association. She had left her previous job at the Santa Fe Symphony about 2 weeks after I started at the Symphony, and I remember losing my ever-loving mind when she told me she was leaving. I was happy for her. It was a great opportunity, and I knew that losing her as a part of our team was going to be devastating. Fast forward a few years, we stayed in touch. I think we got, breakfast every other week at Clafoutis, and commiserated about the challenges facing arts organizations, ourselves in our new roles as executive directors. It was both of our first time. We talked about some of the challenges for young female executive directors and working in such a crowded nonprofit space. And so, in our commiseration sessions, I won't call them bitch sessions, because we kept it pretty positive. We sort of had this inkling of an idea, like our organizations collaborated already. Collaboration is key. What if we did it while we were under one roof and we had one staff and we paid one rent and we advocated together for what we thought the future of classical music should look like? So the business premise of the merger was solid. Through the merger, we kept everyone, every single position. We did not cut positions. We kept every single program. We did not cut programming. Our programs that existed dovetailed with each other. They did not overlap. So unlike many mergers in the for-profit world that come from a place of cost cutting, ours was with the premise that 1 + 1 could equal 3. And in fact, in the first year of the merger, that played itself out. We hired new staff, created new positions, started new programs, formed new partnerships with other organizations and people across Santa Fe Public Schools, City of Santa Fe, County of Santa Fe, State of New Mexico. So the business premise of this merger, it was solid. And the personal premise was it was less solid, but no less well-defined, because I can imagine very few other executive directors who would be willing to forego that title and forego the opportunity to be the big boss and recognize that, she became our director of community engagement. She's now our general manager, but Callie is at her heart a person who believed in the mission of her organization, just like I was for the Symphony. And we had really tough conversations with each other about what it meant to give up our power that we had on our own and move forward together. And I had to recognize at the time, of course, I was the one keeping the executive director title, and she was going to lose it. And when we were preparing for today's talk, she said, that's the number one question about the merger. People didn't ask, like, what's going to happen to the kids? That was not their first question. They were like, oh man, so you're not going to be the boss anymore. And, because of our personalities, because of our friendship, our ability to resolve conflict in a similar way, our demeanor in the workplace, and the founding principles with which we led, we were able to navigate this huge change. And that is, I think, the point of what today's talk is about. Some of the most creative ideas, the most creative collaborations, come from people who have different skill sets, different responsibilities, but they align around core values, and they align around the idea that they can make a difference in their community. And for us, that was creating growth that would outlive us. We both knew that we were not going to be here at Santa Fe Symphony or Youth Symphony in 40 years, but what we could do is leave both organizations better than when we found them. So what is a growth mindset? Most of you probably have heard the ideas of fixed mindsets and growth mindsets. It is tied with creativity, and at its core, what makes somebody growth-minded is their ability not to be paralyzed or bogged down in the fear of failure. It's a mindset that allows people to learn from setbacks and move forward with their lives and their work. And at the Symphony, when recruiting and building up our team and promoting the work that they do, I use a few words ad nauseum, so sorry to my team members for me being a broken record. Patience, positivity, professionalism. And it's an alliteration, so it's easy to remember. Too often, these three words are meant to be foundational. They're the foundation of what our team does and how we approach decision making. And they're also aspirational because we know that we're not perfect. We're not going to be patient all the time. We're not going to be positive all the time, and there might be moments where we're unprofessional, and we have to move through it. We have to keep those goals or those values in our sightlines. Too often, especially in nonprofits, work emergencies can feel like life or death because our budgets are so constrained. But if you, in your daily life, in your work life, you work on changing your mindset and then you change the culture of the people around you, it allows you to create space for comfort and create space for revenue growth, for those of you in non or for-profit, without desperation entering the picture. The parallels between business growth and personal growth are infinite. You can't grow one without the other. There are almost no businesses that are not people-centric, and that applies even more to the creative industries here in Santa Fe and in the wider world. In business, growth is inevitable. It's a constant. It's inherent in our human nature, and it allows businesses to remain competitive, to take advantage of opportunities, and to thrive in their given markets. But especially post-pandemic, while people have a greater appetite and an understanding for the necessity of growth, they also suffer from more change fatigue. I don't know about you guys, but after I went through the pandemic, and after my people went through the pandemic with me, I was ready to curl up in a ball and do nothing ever again that would put me that far out of my comfort zone. And it takes years to recover from that kind of thing, as an industry and as humans. In growth, good leadership can make all the difference, but that's not just good leadership at the top. Everyone in your sphere of influence is a leader when it comes to growth. We all have that ability inside of us, and good leaders, and actually I'll say good bosses, foster the ability for their team to be leaders in everyday decision making. And you'll know when you're ready for growth when you consider it in order to take advantage of an opportunity and not because things aren't working the way they are. That is often inspires things like mergers, like acquisitions, like transformational growth. Often organizations do it from a place of desperation, but the foundation of what Callie and I proposed and what our team has executed this year has been that growth means you completely expand what you're working on, and that forward momentum results in things being stable. It results in inspiring more support from your community, and we have found that to be the case. But change doesn't happen in a vacuum, and especially in business, your stakeholders are the ones who have to weigh in and be a part of it. What they don't tell you is that the biggest hurdle when you're proposing transformational growth is not what comes at first. Proposing the growth is great. That's the sexiest part of the plan, right? Selling it. You're like, growth is amazing. Here's all of the things we're gonna accomplish. You get it passed. Your boards become one. Your staff become one. Everything is headed the way you want. And then problems happen. Then things go the way you didn't anticipate they would. And when you reach your new status quo, you find out very quickly there's no such thing. And you'll never have a status quo again, because once your team has an appetite for growth, you will continue to grow. You will continue to take advantage of opportunities, recruit new members to your team, start new programs. And that's natural. It's a good thing. In considering business growth or the growth of the Symphony, I have to talk about personal growth, right, Alex? This is the part that's the hardest for me to talk about, and I'm gonna tell you why. Executive directors are usually tasked with being the spokesperson for an organization, right? Our thoughts, our feelings, our conversations, we center around what's best for our organization, what serves our mission and our people, and we don't talk about ourselves in that way. In addition, we're so busy, I am so busy, as is every member of my team, that we don't take enough time for self-reflection. We don't take enough time for professional development or really examining how we got to where we are and what we might do differently last time. Actually, signing up for this Creative Mornings talk gave me the first opportunity I've had in 18 months post-merger to think critically about myself as a person and how I've grown through this process. So thank you, Alex, for this opportunity. When I embarked on this change, and when you embark on career or business growth, your personal growth should run parallel with it. And it's because it adds depth, it adds resilience and meaning to the changes that you're making in your career. You cannot have one without the other. So for me, personal growth included confidence. I have started every job in my life, like many of you, I'm sure, with the motto, I'm gonna fake it till I make it. And especially in the creative arts, that moniker has brought me through some really tough times. But somehow, after a few years, or a few months, depending on what you do, you realize that you actually do have the ability to solve your own problems. You have the ability to help your team solve problems. And you gain confidence in the fact that you're no longer faking it, and you no longer have imposter syndrome. Instead, you're empowering your team to do great things. My personal growth also included delegation. Until about 18 months ago, I don't think I knew that I was a terrible delegator. My role at the Symphony when I first started, I likened it to being the captain of the ship, but also the deckhand, and also the anchor, and also the guy who lives below and takes care of the horses. You know, you kind of do it all, right? And when we merged, our organization expanded by more than 30% overnight. 30% bigger budget, 30% bigger staff, and now even further. A great example of this, and me falling into my habits of doing it all myself, was that in 2024, our first end of semester concerts right here at the beautiful Munoz-Waxman Gallery, we had probably 4 or 5 ensembles performing on that concert, and we realized we needed 40 more chairs with which to seat parents, grandparents, people who had bought tickets to see their kids perform. And I was on death's doorstep. I had a respiratory virus that had its hooks in me. I was living on Dayquil and Mucinex D and buzzing, greeting people as they came in to this concert in this space. And then we realized, oh my God, we need 50 chairs. Where are we gonna get these 50 chairs? So what did I do? In my cocktail dress, I drove my truck back to the office. I loaded 50 chairs into my truck bed. I strapped them down. I drove them back to the gallery, and I unloaded them with the help of William Wog, who is our Associate Director of Education Programs. And in that moment, in the freezing cold in December, in my cocktail dress, unloading chairs from my truck bed, I had a come to Jesus moment. I was like, I do not need to be doing this. And especially not while I was sick. It's not that I wouldn't have done it. Clearly I would have. I did it. But I also had to give the curtain speeches at the concerts the next weekend. I had to be well enough to show up and do my job. And I also didn't lean on my team. I only told William about it when I got here to unload the chairs. I needed to lean on my team. I needed to work with them to get the things accomplished that we needed to do. Which brings me to my next area of personal growth, boundaries. I struggled to set boundaries before work and life, still do, before the merger. And I know many of you who are in creative industries, because what we do is so enriching to us and to the people around us, boundaries are one of the last things that we think about. But when you grow, when you are embarking on something intentional and you are doing it with purpose with the people around you, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your team to set boundaries. I realized if I wanted my team to come into the organization and have healthy work-life balance, to have fulfilling lives that were not dominated by emergencies, I had to model that behavior myself. And I'm still struggling to do it, but that was a huge area of growth for me. And vulnerability. I think anyone in a position of leadership or in a position where they are a voice for a mission and for their colleagues, as our team has grown, I've grown in my trust with the people I work with and my own ability to be vulnerable, especially with that inner group. Because when you're growing, as I mentioned before, you're not doing it alone. And the only way people know if you need help is if you ask for it when you're going through this. Just as important as knowing what you did grow or what you want to grow is knowing what you don't want to change about yourself when you go through growth. I decided that I didn't want to lose my lightheartedness in the workplace. I didn't want to lose my sense of humor. And I didn't want to lose this idea, even though we were bigger, even though we were dealing with bigger problems, that, and this is one of my favorite mottos, there are no symphony emergencies. And I'd like to think that applies to a lot of the creative industries. There are no gallery emergencies. There are no, performing arts emergencies or museum emergencies. We all grapple with problems of varying levels of importance, and yeah, they need our full attention, and yeah, we owe our organization and our mission our best work, but it's not life or death, and it shouldn't feel that way. And there is also some personal growth I saw in the team. And this was really a position I think that they all embraced as we went through the merger, embracing growth and understanding that they had to get comfortable operating a little bit in the gray while we figured out the answers to problems that we didn't even know existed yet. Our team stayed patient. Sometimes the wrong people would be left out of a conversation, and it wasn't intentional. We all had the best of intentions, and more importantly, we believed the best intentions in each other. But when folks are left out unintentionally of a meeting, it leads to this feeling like, well, didn't you know I needed to be there? And we were able, the team just stayed patient. They grounded themselves in the realization that we could do better the next time. And when we had an important discussion that was missing key people and realized it after the fact, we apologized. I apologized. And I made a note of, okay, who's got to be there next time? Who is important in this decision-making process? But the fact that the team did not rake me over the coals for that is huge, because it is something that lends itself to a positive business environment. Like many boys and girls who grow up in the Midwest, I grew up saying sorry way too much. Just yesterday, actually, my husband heard me cough and then literally say sorry to an empty room in our house. And he's like, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "No one, there's no one here. I just am sorry for coughing." And for me, that, conflict is the biggest thing I had to grow at personally. The biggest, by far. I am not a naturally conflict excited person. That's the wrong word. But when it comes to growth, whether it's you yourself, whether it's an organization, you're proposing something that's a departure. You're proposing something that involves change. And that means conflict is gonna happen. And I told myself before the merger, I got it. It's gonna be fine. I know I'm not the best at it, but I can embrace it. I was wrong. I still avoided conflict when I could, and I was shocked at myself. I was like, how did I fall back into these old habits? How did I do this to myself and my team? And then I realized all I can do is equip myself to help resolve conflicts and do the same for my team. And that just comes from repetition. The more conflict that you navigate, the better you become at it, and you realize what you want to do about it when it comes up. There are so many resources out there about how to resolve conflict, including my favorite from The Office, the win-win-win strategy. I don't know if you guys know that. Sadly, though, in life, win-win-win is not a real thing. And the best you mostly hope for is compromise, right? You have to find the best possible path forward. And you have to make sure your team you are coming to it from a place of good intention. And you think the best of the person who believes the opposite of what you do, and then you can work together on what that compromise looks like going forward. So when we look back at the Santa Fe Symphony's approach to a merger, there were quite a few things that I think we did right. Communications. Callie and I spent hours and hours on the phone, at lunches, one-on-one with people, in all walks of life with our organizations, explaining the merger to them, what it would mean for the children in our programs, what it would mean for the musicians on our stage. We were aggressively positive. aggressively. And there are very natural questions that come up about mergers that are like, what if this goes wrong? We would work as best we could to flip that script and say, here's how we would deal with it, but here's what happens if it goes right. We had conversations, especially internally, and we focused on the people who were involved in the merger, being honest about what would change for them and also what we didn't know yet. And empowering the team, I think, to solve problems on their own and implement their own solutions. You can't do everything, as my pickup truck incident would indicate. We also worked very carefully to foster the right kind of corporate culture. And there, in life or in business, creative industries, there's no one right corporate culture, but we knew what was right for us, and we committed to it every step of the way with every member of our team as we grew. And we kept our core values. We talked about what drove our decision making, and it empowered everyone around us to think about things that way, and the members of our team in being transparent about what they were considering as they made decisions. For example, when new programs, opportunities, ideas came up in a staff meeting setting, my big questions were, okay, tell me about the numbers. Tell me about the costs and the benefits. Who does it serve? How much does it cost us? What are the revenue opportunities? And when they knew they could predict those questions from me, our team knows to ask those questions before the idea is even brought to a larger staff group. And we all know that one of the founding principles of our merger in our organization is balanced budgets. If we're proposing something that isn't paying for itself, that's okay, but we want to know why. We want to know why we're committed to it, and we also want to think creatively about revenue streams to help offset that cost. And we built consensus. As we engaged with our stakeholders, with our team, we talked through everything ad nauseum. I mean, the team will tell you, we've had lots of conversations and lots of redundant conversations, but it allowed us to really understand where each other were coming from. In the first conversation, the concept starts to get through. In the second conversation, the person is ready to ask some tough questions, get a better understanding of what we're talking about, and maybe by that third conversation, you can begin to build that consensus. But it's not going to come from just a single conversation with a single person about a single topic. And personality clashes, you got to factor these in at some point. But if you stick to your core values, you're able to move past those clashes. What we learned from the merger, and I chose this title intentionally instead of saying what went wrong, because that's not a growth mindset. A growth mindset is saying, okay, what lessons did we learn? What do we want to do differently in the future when we merge with someone else? Communications, note, this is on both lists. We did well, and we could have done things better. We should have combined groups of stakeholders. We should have made sure that our parents and our audience members and our board members were speaking the same language. They got to know each other on a more intimate basis so that when concerns came up, they felt comfortable talking to each other about it instead of feeling a little siloed in their one piece of what our mission was. We were candid through the merger as best we could be, but the pressure to have all the answers is pretty overwhelming. And I wish I had been more comfortable operating with, I don't know. I need more information. I can't make this decision right now in this moment, and we have to involve more people to talk about it and make that decision. Catastrophizing is my favorite word in the whole presentation. I have a board member who came to me and he said, you need to plan for every eventuality, everything that could go wrong. You have to write out what you're going to do about it and who is going to participate and how long it's going to take. And I said, David, no, it's going to be fine. Bob's laughing because he knows David. I said, you know, we have the right skill sets to tackle problems. We got this. And David was right. Because, and I didn't know this at the time, had we written out answers to all the problems we thought never were going to come up, and a lot of them didn't, we would have been better equipped to handle those random problems that we didn't see coming a mile away. Churn. I said when I started this presentation, the people in the arts and in my business are my favorite part about it. But when you grow, you have to recognize that people will end up deciding their place is no longer with your organization. And when change happens, you communicate about it, you're honest about it, and you also have to wish people well if they decide that their path is going to take them elsewhere. And do it with an air of positivity and happiness for them, that they recognize, they're ready for the next step and it's not with you. And compliments. You can never say or do enough to appreciate the people around you, whether they report to you or not, whether they are collaborators, clients, audience members, donors. I think there's no such thing as too much, because we don't grow in a vacuum. We all rely on each other, and you'll never be pulling in the same direction if people don't know what excites you about the work that they're doing. And especially if you're in nonprofit, I don't know, how many of you are in nonprofit in here? Okay, so quite a few. One of the important things, tell different people in your organization to compliment directly and direct complaints just to you. No, you don't share negative feedback just with anybody, but you do share positive feedback just with anybody. So, as we wrap up this presentation, I hope that my personal journey and the Symphony's journey through this helps frame some of the challenges and the opportunities we found through this process. And as you embrace creativity in your own work and embrace growth in your own work, please continue to share your successes and failures openly with others, because humans are unique in our ability to learn from the mistakes of others, but we're also unique in our disinclination to do so. So, thank you. Thanks, Alex.